Hi, I'm Megan with Monroe County Ag in the Classroom, and I'm here with Nathan Johanning. And Nathan, what's your title with Extension?
I'm a commercial agriculture educator with the University of Illinois Extension based in Waterloo.
Okay, and we're out on Nathan's farm, on his family farm, and we're talking about pumpkins. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about with pumpkins today is the different varieties of pumpkins. So what can you tell us about the different varieties of pumpkins?
So there are all kinds of different varieties out there. There's literally hundreds of different things that we call pumpkins that are often winter squash or gourds or other things, but we use them all for different decorative purposes for fall and also some for edible. So there's a couple different main types of pumpkins that we talk about, different species of pumpkins. So the pumpkins are in the family are their cucurbits. So that is the general family of all cucurbits, and that also includes things like watermelons, cantaloupe, cucumbers, summer squash. They're all in the cucurbit family. So for what we think of as fall ornamentals, there's a couple of families specifically represented. First off, we have our traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. So this is our Cucurbita pepo. And so this is a standard orange pumpkin. There's lots of variations on this. They have this traditional stem, and that's a lot of how we distinguish some of them, as you can tell by looking at the stem. So this one is a Cucurbita pepo. Again, that's our jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. There's lots of other different varieties of more of our red and blue and other colors of pumpkins, which are actually more of winter squash. So they have this nice round stem, and so for those are actually in that winter squash family. Most of those are in the Cucurbita maxima family. So these are a Cucurbita maxima type. The last type, for most part, we have are some of these that are, we call more of a processing pumpkin. They have a small, round, fairly round stem, fairly hard, and those are actually in Cucurbita machata family. They're very similar to, in the same family as your butternut squash, processing pumpkins, and there's some different what we call specialty pumpkins, most of which have a tan color. This one still has a little green on it, but they turn from green to tan. And so those are three of the main types. There's a few other cucurbit species that are mixed in there sometimes, but these are the three main types of pumpkins that we utilize for different fall decorations and some for eating as well.
And so you call that a processing pumpkin. I think when you buy like a packet of seeds in the store, you would call it a pie pumpkin, right? I think most of the time they're called pie pumpkins, right?
Yeah, so pie pumpkins is another another name for them you see, and so those are processing or pie pumpkin. Those would be the family of pumpkin that we use to commercially to put into canned pumpkin. So those are some of the different types. So a key feature, so many of you sometimes want to make pumpkin on your own, maybe bake a pumpkin and use that to use for pie filling and other things, or cakes, breads and things. So one thing, whenever you take a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin and split it open, this is kind of what it looks like. So you have that bright orange flesh, or excuse me, bright kind of yellowish pale flesh. It's also fairly stringy in consistency whenever you bake it, but certainly there is a fair amount of flesh in there, and some people use those for like those for pie. There's a lot of what you use for pie is personal preference, so there's no right or wrong answer.
So are these not? But if you bake them, will they not be as sweet as a pie pumpkin?
So in my opinion, again, this goes back to every person has a different taste. I think they don't have as much flavor. They're not quite as sweet. Because if we take and look at what would we consider one of the processing types, this is what the inside looks like. So it's that bright orange color, so more reminiscent. So this is again the species of pumpkin that you would use if you got a can of Libby's pumpkin. It would be a similar variety to this. It would have that bright orange color. This specific variety has a lot thicker flesh. It's hard to tell from there, but the flesh is also, it's a lot more meaty. Has that bright orange color, a lot more beta carotene and stuff in it, and has a lot smoother consistency. It's not quite as stringy as what your carving pumpkin would be. So that's a common thing that people don't realize, is they think that the pumpkin you get in the can is just a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, and that's not the case. It's a specific specific type of cucurbit that falls into that butternut squash family that has that rich color and flavor that people have come to know and appreciate for pies and things like that. But there's all kinds of different pumpkins. Some people like using some of these winter squash types for pie. They're also very edible. They also use them for soups and things like that. So
when you cut up a blue pumpkin like that, what does it look like on the inside? Is it orange?
So a blue one like that is actually a bright yellow.
Oh, really?
On the inside. So that's a contrast to that. Their flesh again is a little more is very meaty. If you ever picked up one of the blue pumpkins, they're very heavy. So just like some of those, that means they have a lot of flesh in them. Some of those pumpkins, when you pick up a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, it feels fairly light whenever you pick up one of these. That say even this pumpkin right here probably weighs at least probably 15 or 18 pounds compared to that one right next to it that probably is only about 10 or 12 pounds. So a lot of flesh in them, not much hollow space in them, which is good, especially if you're wanting it for baking, because that means you can yield a lot more meat out of it.
So how many different varieties of pumpkins do you grow here?
So here on the farm, we have around 50 to 60 different varieties, and that ranges from small gourds on up to larger size jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. And a lot of people may not realize is there are literally probably 100 or more different types of just orange pumpkins. So just because you see an orange pumpkin, I might have over a dozen different varieties of orange pumpkins that make the spread of different shapes and sizes. And even though they're all just orange carving pumpkins on the outside. So.
So what do you have a favorite pumpkin? A favorite variety that you grow?
I would say there's a variety I've grown for a long time called Magic Lantern. It's a nice size carving pumpkin. It has a nice stem on it, and because stems are very important, especially for the aesthetics of the pumpkin, has always done very well. And although I'm always trying new ones, that's one of the many ones that I always kind of go back to year after year.
Okay, I don't know if I've ever saw that one in the store before. Is it a common one?
It is fairly common. However, with a lot of vegetables, the things you see in the store is a lot different than the varieties you might see more available on a commercial scale. So there's a lot of varieties, unfortunately, that you can get in larger quantities through commercial seed companies that you don't see out on, say, store shelves. But if you do go to some of these places and seed catalogs and order your seed, you can find a lot broader variety of varieties and selection than what you can, say, at your local home or farm store.
Okay, so you said you like the Magic Lantern. Is there a variety of pumpkin that they would grow specifically in Morton, Illinois? Are those all the same variety of pumpkin for processing?
So there's actually a variety. They actually call it Libby's, is what they call it.
Really?
It is their own variety that they've developed and selected of that Machada type of pumpkin that we talked about. So that's a specific type. It's that tan color we talked about. It's actually kind of elongated for the most part. So they're not short and round, but they tend to be a little longer in nature and fairly large in size. Often anywhere from 15, 20, or even up to 30 pounds. So.
Oh wow.